In this video, I'll be talking about my political journey, how I went from a bit of an extremist to what I like to call it common sense. And if you're in support of the Libs or Democrats, I recommend that you watch this video and just hear what I had to basically go through, or what I went through when I was supporting the party that you're currently supporting. And I recommend that you think about some of the things that I say. So, of course, I'm still relatively young, as you can probably tell, obviously, so I didn't think about politics my whole life, but I think when I first started to think about politics was when I was about 9, because it was when the pandemic had started. The link to that video will be in the description or the comment section, and I'm sorry if the link maybe isn't doing its job and being effective when you tap on it, because I've seen that in a few other videos, but I'll try. If not, you can just go to my channel and head down, because this is only the second long form video that I've made. And I also made a short form video on this, but it didn't really talk about much of the details, just basically the synopsis of the whole thing. And this one will be talking about full detail. Alright, we're beginning it for real this time. So as I've said before, I never really thought about politics until COVID, basically. When my grandfather told me that Donald Trump had lied about COVID. I know a lot of you cringe at that name. And to be fair, I do. But I used to be scared of that name. Okay? Because my grandfather, who had been told the same things that he told me, thought he didn't think he was actually brainwashing me, or spreading the brainwashing. He just he thought he was protecting me. I really hope he doesn't see this video. But yeah, and I heard about the woman vice president and how she could make a good next president, according to Grandpa, and I thought about politics a little bit because of that, but not really Canadian politics, because I thought we were safe and we had the Prime Minister that worked really hard for us. So that was all I basically thought about. I feel like if they talked about politics more around me, I would have gotten more into it, but they encouraged me to not be into politics, so I wasn't really into it. It was something that was on the not on the back burner, the trunk, basically. And I had this mindset for quite a while, actually. When I was about 10, I was worried that my celebrity crush was an anti-COVIDer because he lived in the States. However, my mom told me after I'd gotten my vaccines that, not very many people are anti-COVIDers. There's nothing for you to worry about. But it was still a constant fear that gnawed at me, and it was really bad. And that's another thing, the vaccines. I was in that line of the vaccines, it was the only thing that would keep me alive. Anyway, and around this time when I got the vaccines, the war of Russia and Ukraine started, and I was ducking terrified. I was terrified that the bombs would drop and like we'd join the war, and I would just be walking down the hall in my school and just like, you know, be like in survival mode. Like I'd be like, what if a bomb dropped right now? What if a Russian bomb dropped right now? Because there were boats going to help Ukraine, there still are, and I was scared they would start bombing us, basically. I was 11, and it got to the point where I had a nightmare about it. It was like the area across from my place, and it was like a bomb dropped and it started going the direction of our house, and I told my parents about it, and they were like, we didn't realize we talked about it all the time, and they stopped talking about it around me, but that didn't really help because I'd already heard about it enough that I was already scared, and I questioned my mom a lot of what was going on in Ukraine, and that was what I was afraid of. And I don't remember exactly when I stopped really thinking about it, but I think I stopped a few months later when I was distracted by other things. And school was another massive thing. My school has a very liberal view. Like, you can literally see pride flags when you go into the hall near the stairway. There's a bunch of LGBTQ plus flags. And another thing was, the main thing they would tell us about, or make sure we knew about, was the residential schools, and how we were responsible for torturing the First Nations. That was a long time ago, before we were ever born. And for like quite a few years, I was ashamed of being white. You heard that right? I was ashamed of a skin color, something I couldn't even control because of something my ancestors did. And I am not undermining the situation of the residential schools and the immigrants at all. I know it was terrible, and I know we did some terrible things to the First Nations, and I am not denying that in any way, shape, or form, because that was terrible. But I was, for many years, ashamed of being white, as I said before. And I couldn't even control it. You can't control the skin you're born in. So you may as well make the most of it. Like, don't be a racist. Like, they never told us, like, that black people and white people were equal and meant it. They said all lives mattered. Actually, they more said Black Lives Matter, not all lives matter, which in my opinion, is better than Black Lives Matter. But the point was, I was ashamed of something I couldn't even control. And that's bad. It's like, as I've said before, I'm not trying to undermine the whole First Nations suppressing situation at all, but we've been at peace for a while now, and there hasn't been like slaves in North America for a while now, unlike some other countries. And even then, I was still ashamed. They made it like, they talked like it was still happening in North America, and we were at fault for it. And I think that was what took a toll on my mental health in the 6th grade, because I had really bad mental health in the 6th grade, which was why I had to start taking time off in the middle of the week to just refresh. But in about 2023, in September, one thing led to another, and my mom told me about Justin Trudeau, the man who I recently thought was working hard for us, trying to prevent COVID from spreading to us, actually did some really terrible things for Canada. And that was, my friend, was when I officially became politically homeless. I didn't even know who Pierre was. Actually, I had seen his name about a month ago in the drive, and I thought it was pronounced Polyever, or Poiliever. But other than that, I didn't really know much about him. I knew he was a politician, and I knew he didn't like Trudeau, and that was all. Not enough for me to be able to support him. And that leads us to a few months later, early 2024. My parents had question period on the TV in the living room, because they have a belief that we should see question period. Even the kids should see what their government is doing, and they should have the right to make their own opinion. And I was watching question period, and I saw Pierre, and it was like the first time I had seen him talk and like seen his face and stuff, not just hearing his name get spoken. And what he said, it touched my heart in a way that it had never been touched before. And what he said, it was about like how when he became prime minister and fixed stuff, and he imagined, like, he talked about how like this couple would be sitting on the porch, being like knowing that their kids are safe playing out, and having their Canadian flag hang proudly on the porch. And that stuck with me. It still sticks with me. And Matt asked what I thought about him, and I was like, how do I know if he's lying or not? And that's kind of what made me not support him for a while. It's not like I didn't want to support him, but there was my mind kept pushing me away, and it was like kept telling me that I wouldn't, like, he'd be a big phony, and like he'd ruin Canada, and I shouldn't support him, and I shouldn't I shouldn't put my faith in him because of what happened with Justin. And so I stayed that way for quite a while. And when we went to Ottawa in a bit, in like the summer of 2024, my grandparents in Ottawa, not the one that was such really anti-MAGA that I mentioned earlier, they're actually really pro-Trump. They're pro-conservative. They're a bit more right than I am, but they were conservative. They liked Pierre. And one day, me and my grandfather in Ontario, I don't want to say his name because I'm not sure if he'd like that, or we were watching something Trump related, and he asked if I wanted a Trump shirt, and I was like, that doesn't feel right, because I still didn't really like Trump, and well, I still didn't really like him, but I liked him even less back then. And he was like, what about a Pierre Polyev shirt? And then I was like, but I don't know if he's being good or not. And he was like, yeah, that's true. And then he had such a sad look on his face. Like, he just saw like this lost, politically homeless girl who just like, didn't know which way to go, except not to go Justin's way. And that's what I was. That's actually what I was. So I thought about Pierre way more when I was in Ottawa than I usually did. His speech about parents on the porch, knowing that their kids are safe outside, watching the sunset with the Canadian flag hanging on their porch. It still resonated with me. It still touched my heart. Way it never been touched before. And I would think about that speech occasionally, and I would wonder, was he the right one? And it was this way for a while until I think it was somewhere between, it was like early school year, and we were sitting in our classroom, and all of a sudden a Pierre Polyev ad came on when the teacher was searching for something on YouTube. It wasn't able to be skipped. It was this one here.
I'm Pierre Polyev. My common sense plan will axe the tax, build the homes, fix the budget, and stop the crime, so you can afford good food and a decent house in the Canada we know and love. Let's bring it home.
And my health teacher, she was just like holding the the mouse, and just like moving it around. And I mean, she could have exited out of it, but I guess she didn't. My mom, when I talked about it with my mom, she said that like this might have been because she was trying to get the classmates and me to see it, and she just pretended to like be all freaked out by it and just like make them think that she was just old and didn't know how to use the PC thing. And yeah, I mean, my classmates wouldn't really put it past her because she didn't really have a really good reputation. She's gone now though, and that was pretty shocking for me. But that was kind of another step forward for me into supporting Pierre. And later on, I was listening to a song, and I went to the Shorts remix of it, and I saw a video with, it looked like the House of Commons, so I was like, oh, I know, like, I think he had Trudeau on it, which was what intrigued me to watch it, because I knew he was bad, and I had a deep-seated resentment towards him. I mean, I still do. And I wanted to see what he was saying, and, like, because it intrigued me, right? And he was talking about the school food program. The one that doesn't exist. And how it would help 400,000 more kids across the country have full bellies as they start their school day. Exactly as he said it, or not as he said it, but what he said. The way he said it was far more, basically. And then Pierre, he said these exact words. Mr. Speaker, that school food program hasn't served a single solitary meal. Even though it was promised 3 years ago, what he's feeding is bureaucracy, not children. And then everyone clapped. And I later realized it was Pierre, and I was like, whoa, that's like good, like, speech. And it just loomed on my mind a lot more after that short, the whole Trudeau thing, and I began to watch more politics. I saw question period clips, the way Pierre was in question period, I can't wait for him to be back, by the way. Mark Carney's gonna be so screwed. Gosh. But, I realized he sounded really genuine in what he was saying, and he didn't or like how Trudeau did. The US election was also coming up, and I asked Mom, like, who was the better one, because she doesn't really lie to me, and she gave her opinion. She said that, like, Trump wasn't the best, but he was better than the other candidate, aka the vice president that I used to look up to. And I looked at a few videos of American politics too, and I didn't want to support and hope that Trump won. Okay? But since he was less bad than Kamala, I'm gonna get so many people mad here, I know. I thought, well, I mean, I hope he wins since he's better, but that was so weird to think, and yeah, I'm still not really, he's not perfect. He's flawed. Deeply flawed. But not as deeply flawed as the other candidate. But he's not the extreme anti-women's rights and, like, SA, or that the media portrays him as. But, I mean, we all know what happened at the US election, so I don't really have to go into detail about that. Grandpa was pretty sad. I felt bad for him, but I'm sure you knew he'd be pretty sad. But I knew he'd be pretty sad anyway. But anyway. Meanwhile, I was still politically homeless in Canada politics, and as I said, I was watching more of those videos, which I think happened a little bit after the American election. But anyway, I just sat, and after, like, a bunch of, like, thoughts, after seeing a bunch of Pierre's videos and how he didn't or I decided, with careful thought of both my brain and my heart and my mind, and brain are the same thing, sorry. Anyway, with careful thought and a long time of debating, I decided to join the Conservatives for now. Because the parties are always changing. They might not be the same right now. And the difference between how I went to supporting Pierre and how I went to supporting Trump is, like, visible. I went and supported Trump because he was the better option, and I still didn't really like him so much. But with Pierre, I gravitated shifted towards him, and I actually liked a lot more of what he was saying, and he was way more like where I was in the political spectrum Pierre was, and it hasn't changed much, and I'm still conservative to this day. Bring it home. But I haven't even been conservative for a year now, about 9 months. And I don't plan on stopping anytime soon unless something really bad happens. But I think for now and for a long time from now, I'm going to be conservative. That's the end of my political story. Leave a thumbs up and subscribe if you enjoyed this. I'll be posting a lot more politics stuff. about what it was like growing up in the lost circle decade. And goodbye. I hope you had a good day, and whether you're Democratic, Republican, liberal, conservative, I don't care, just have a good day. And I hope if you're liberal or Democratic, I hope you think about what I said in this video and maybe do a deep dive on politics. I recommend that. And I'm not judging you, because I was there too once before.